Everything you need to know about Byron Murphy II, the Seattle Seahawks pick at 16th in the NFL draft. First and foremost, before we even get into talking about Byron Murphy himself, let's talk about the situation the Seahawks were in. Many people believed the Seahawks could select an edge rusher, an offensive lineman, a quarterback. Well, guess what? Every pick until the 15th pick, and the Seahawks are 16th, was an offensive player. And 6 out of the top 12 were quarterbacks. You had, of course, Caleb Williams, number 1 to the Bears. You had Jaden Daniels at number 2 to the Commanders. You had Drake May, number 3 to the Patriots. I believe Michael Penix went 8th to the Atlanta Falcons. J.J. McCarthy went 10th to the Vikings. And Bo Nix went 12th to the Broncos. A lot of people assumed that maybe the Seahawks would end up with somebody potentially like Bo Nix, Michael Penix, or even J.J. McCarthy, but that was out of the way. The Seahawks had their pick at a defensive player at 16. With these quarterbacks gone, a lot of top-notch offensive players gone. The only person that went before Byron Murphy as a defensive player was at number 15, right before him to the Colts, which was the edge rusher Latu from UCLA. So Mike McDonald, John Schneider, and the Seattle Seahawks, a team that's probably looking to build on the defensive side more than the offensive side. And having a coach like Mike McDonald, who's supposed to be the defensive young guru like Sean McVay, but on the defensive side, had his pick at pretty much every other defensive player in the draft and almost every player in the entire draft at the defensive side. So for a guy who is a defensive guru type of guy and a guy who loves to build defenses, this was the top-notch scenario for the Seahawks. And they, of course, went with the defensive tackle, defensive interior lineman in Byron Murphy from Texas. He's 6'1". Some places have him listed between 297 and 303 pounds. He ran a 4.87 40-yard dash, 33-inch vertical. So let's go through some of the positives here. Good build with a thick lower half and not very much bad weight. Quick get-offs helps him penetrate right off the snap. Also has the agility to cross the guard's face when slanting. Shoots his hand straight from his stance and has the upper body strength to get extensions against offensive linemen fairly easy. Takes on blocks with a wide base and good pad level. Hard to move one-on-one and is very solid against double teams. Has a nice swim move to escape and defeat blocks. Has the strength to pull guard shoulder down and win a pass rusher with an arm over. Also a nice rip-through move. Flash decent push-pull and club-by moves that can add to his arsenal in the NFL. And the negatives are less, but here's a couple of negatives that are listed. Lacks the ideal height for an NFL defensive tackle, may have shorter arms. I could care less about that. Stops his feet on contact, which can be an issue against double teams, more aggressive offensive linemen, limits the effectiveness of his ball rush. Subpar use of hands as a pass rusher, needs to do a better job of working the offensive lineman's hands to start his pass rush moves as he lets them latch onto him. And last but not least, has a habit of diving at the feet when tackling in the backfield, which leads to misses against running backs and athletic quarterbacks. He played 14 games last year, 29 total tackles, 8.5 for a loss, and 5 sacks. He was listed as a lot of people's best defensive player in the entire draft, and obviously the best interior defensive lineman in the draft. So for the Seahawks to get a 300-pound defensive interior lineman, I think is just a really big plus in this draft. Number one, he is a great player for Mike McDonald to work on. This defensive line, defensive front, whatever you want to call it, including pass rushers, is just getting better. I mean, with the bringing back of Leonard Williams, with Boye Mafe on the edge, or Uchenna Nwasu, some edge rushing, and having Byron Murphy interiorly, there's a lot of good things that are happening here for the Seahawks. Remember, the Seahawks were going to want to build defensively more than likely. That's where biggest struggles were happening. Mike McDonald got this Seahawks team, and the Seahawks team had Geno Smith and now Sam Howell, Kenneth Walker, some really solid pieces moving forward with Charles Cross, Abraham Lucas. It looks like Olusegun Oluwatumi will probably be the center. Some decent pieces on the line, and then they bolstered that up in the offseason. And then they have Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. They have Noah Fant. Farrell Brown came in as tight end. There wasn't that many holes outside of some pieces on the offensive line, which I promise they'll probably do later in the draft. But with some of the top offensive linemen like Joe Alt and J.C. Latham already off the board, they weren't going to go with an offensive lineman picking too high unless they traded back. So they got the best defensive player on the board and probably the best defensive player for their needs, somebody on the interior defensive line, a place that I felt like we've been lacking for a lot of years. It just doesn't feel like we've had that super seriously good impact guy on the defensive line for a while. And they got him. So this defense is only going to get better. They're building it. We don't have a pick till the third round now, but we have some picks later in the draft, and I bet most of them, is my guess, is going to be picked on the defensive side of the ball with an exception of either a guard or a tackle or a center somewhere mixed in. But this is a great pick for the Seahawks. It's something that people have assumed might happen. I saw Field Yates on ESPN had him there as the 16th pick to the Seahawks. There was other people that we were interested, like Jared Verse, Dallas Turner, Troy Fautanu. They were all available on the board for the Seahawks. So I'm very happy to see that we're not going to look back, like last year maybe. Devin Witherspoon worked out great, but I really wanted Will Anderson. He was off the board. There's not even an option. This year, I don't think, you could always look back and say the guy after him, was better or whatever, but I like the fact that the Seahawks really got to pick their guy. It's not like we have to sit there and say, shoot, like 2 out of the 3 guys we really thought we wanted are off the board. No, he had the pick for who he wanted, and he got the guy that he wanted. So overall, we're talking about a guy of good get-off quickness. He's moved up on draft boards, 308 pounds. Some places list him. He's going to quick agility for a guy his size. Most people, like I said the biggest concern is his height and his arm length. But at the end of the day, these things can work out. Schematically, they believe that he's best as a 3 technique, even in even fronts. We'll see how the Seahawks end up doing everything with Mike McDonald's defense. But overall, this guy played at Texas. He won a Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, Defensive Lineman of the Year, and played in big games. I mean, it's you saw the Texas go to the Sugar Bowl, was it? The Final Four Sugar Bowl against the Washington Huskies. He got his hands on Michael Penix a couple times. I'm not really sure if it was a sack or not, but he's an impact player in this league. A lot of people like him. Low center of gravity, explosive power, and at the end of the day, he's good at, both on the run game and the pass game. And for a guy who won Big 12 Defensive Lineman of the Year, I'm pretty happy about. And here's another big piece, obviously, and I'll read you what they say. But ESPN Steve Munich said that Murphy is an outstanding run defender, a helpful trait for a Seahawks team that ranked 31st in rushing yards allowed per game last year. So we're bringing in an outstanding run defender for a team that was 31st in the NFL in rushing yards allowed per game. Obviously, a big deal. Murphy is an outstanding run defender with low center of gravity, explosive power. He finds the ball and gets off blocks and pursues with good effort and gets into gaps and disrupts plays in the backfield too. Murphy fights to hold his ground when he gets doubled, and he flashes an ability to split double teams. He's quick with active hands and changes directions while rushing the passer. And Murphy is an effective lead blocker who can even carry the ball and catch on offense in goal line packages. And I did see a video on Twitter of him running it in for a touchdown at Texas. So he's one of those big man defensive linemen that, you might see play as a tight end for a play randomly or run in a touchdown, running a touchdown on the 1 yard line instead of a QB sneak. We don't have another pick till 81st in the third round. But the Seahawks at 16 bolstered the defensive line. He's the best defensive tackle in the draft. ESPN had him as the 14th best prospect overall in the draft, so we might even got him a little lower than where he could have gone. So it was a good pick. While everyone in the NFL is looking like they were picking offense, the Seahawks and Mike McDonald, Mike McDonald, it's Mike McDonald, went for a defensive player in Byron Murphy, and we got our guy. I'm happy. Are you happy? Let me know in the comments, and I love y'all, and we'll see you this weekend. Peace.